Very good. Very good.
Maya.
Very.
Giddy up, Percy.
Giddy up, Percy.
Giddy up.
In a quaint neighborhood, the Kowalski family's home stands as a beacon of warmth and joy. The sun peeks through the curtains of Maya's room, where the 10-year-old skating enthusiast is already up, her energy infectious. Her parents, Jack and Beata, juggle their demanding careers. Jack, a valiant firefighter, and Beata, a compassionate nurse, with a commitment to creating a loving home for Maya and her younger brother, Kyle. Outside, Maya practices her routines, her movements a symphony of grace and strength. Kyle's always in her shadow, attempting to mirror her moves, resulting in a series of humorous, playful exchanges. Evenings at the Kowalski household are a time for togetherness. At dinner, the family shares stories from their day. Maya speaks about her next skating meet, Beata listening intently, her face alight with maternal pride, while Jack regals them with tales from the fire station. Later, the family gathers in the living room, the flicker of the television casting a cozy glow. They are engrossed in their Friday night movie, a tradition that blinds them in shared experiences and laughter. These are typical days for the Kowalski family. It is the 4th of July weekend. Maya and her younger brother are playing with sparklers near their home when Maya has a severe asthma attack. Beata takes Maya to the Sarasota Memorial Hospital, where she begins to complain of a burning sensation in her legs and feet. Within weeks, Maya can barely walk. Her feet turn inward, she develops lesions, and her legs can no longer support her body. At night, Beata can hear Maya's cries from her bedroom on the other side of the house. She works as an infusion nurse and has seen many kinds of suffering. But Maya's symptoms are like nothing she's ever encountered. Beata feels helpless as she watches her once active, cheerful daughter descend into unrelenting agony. Maya moans through the night, unable to find relief. Her feet are misshapen and her body is racked by mysterious lesions. Simple tasks like walking to the bathroom become impossible. Beata agonizes over what is happening to her little girl. How could a sparkler on Independence Day ignite such a cascade of suffering? During the day, Beata cares for other people's loved ones, but each evening she returns home to find Maya's condition worsening. Beata researches desperately for answers, one diagnosis after another, grasping at any possibility, but no explanations fit Maya's array of perplexing symptoms. Specialist after specialist shake their heads, adjusting medications, trying therapies, but never stopping the progression of Maya's pain. Beata helplessly watches her daughter waste away, confined to a wheelchair, crying out during the night. Her happy little girl is disappearing, leaving behind only endless, unimaginable pain. Finally, a promising specialist in Tampa, Florida administers innovative pain tests, including measuring pain levels in Maya's brain. His diagnosis of complex regional pain syndrome, CRPS, provides tentative hope. But when low doses of ketamine fail to alleviate Maya's pain, the doctor suggests a radical procedure available in Mexico. Maya's parents, determined to end their daughter's nightmare, agree. Maya is admitted into a Mexican clinic where she is placed in a ketamine-induced coma for 5 excruciating days. When the ketamine is finally stopped, Maya awakens disoriented, hallucinating and shivering. But is she pain-free? Her family waits anxiously, desperate to reclaim their Maya. To the family's immense relief, Maya makes a miraculous recovery after the ketamine treatment. Her once unbearable pain subsides and she regains the ability to walk. A dream come true. For a blissful year, Maya's condition seems cured with continuous lower doses of ketamine, her agony a distant memory. But one night, the nightmare returns. Maya's excruciating pain grips her body once more, triggering flashbacks of her terrifying ketamine coma. Maya's parents know exactly what she needs. They rush her to the hospital and inform the doctors of her complex regional pain syndrome diagnosis, demanding high levels of ketamine. However, the hospital staff balk at Maya's mother, Beata's forceful manner and extensive medical knowledge. Beata knows all this because of her background as an infusion nurse, and she has been documenting every single doctor's visit and symptom Maya's had over the years. Unfamiliar with CRPS, They doubt the need for such an extreme treatment, especially for a child. Beata's devotion to documenting Maya's many symptoms and doctor visits strike the staff as excessive involvement. The doctors become suspicious of Munchausen by proxy after reviewing Maya's extensive medical records, showing she has been taken to many doctors repeatedly since toddlerhood. They believe this to be doctor shopping for anyone that will prescribe what the mother wants. Maya's parents want her discharged from the hospital, but staff say she has to stay for evaluation. When the parents threaten to take Maya against medical advice, they are told they will be arrested. The hospital takes drastic steps to protect Maya, separating her from her family and discounting her previous diagnosis. The doctors recommend state custody, and the state issues a shelter order forbidding Maya's parents from seeing her. Alone in the hospital, Maya is told her mother is quote-unquote crazy and has falsely treated her for many years. Without her CRPS medication, she deteriorates under the hospital's questionable care. They leave her with an out-of-reach portable toilet, despite her inability to walk, hoping to prove her immobility isn't real. Helpless, Maya soils herself, her distress escalating. The hospital staff, including nurses and social workers, inflict further trauma on Maya. She is subjected to repeated physical and emotional abuse, all under the guise of medical treatment. Her basic human rights are stripped away, as she is denied access to her family, religious artifacts, and even legal counsel. Maya's personal belongings, including her iPad and computer, are confiscated based on accusations of using them for inappropriate adult searches. This further isolates her from any source of comfort. Her condition deteriorates in the hospital, not just physically but mentally and emotionally as well. Maya's feet remain inward, and her lesions continue appearing all over her body. The doctors set her up with physical therapy sessions and boots to correct her feet. However, when these treatments don't work, a doctor tells her that if her feet do not correct themselves, then he will break her feet and correct them himself. Desperate to reclaim their daughter, Maya's parents battle through the legal system. Her father Jack is permitted occasional visits under one condition: no discussing medical issues with Beata, the mother accused of Munchausen. He complies, intent on supporting Maya however he can. Though banned from seeing her daughter, Beata is allowed supervised phone calls about mundane life, nothing medical. But strong-willed Beata sometimes breaks the rules, risking her own access to Maya. She cannot idly chat while her child suffers.
I miss you so much every day. Every single day.
You know how happy it makes me feel to hear your voice.
Same here. I miss you so much, and I am so happy that I'm finally able to hear your voice too. Yeah.
I hope you.
What did you say, sweetie?
I hope I can see you soon.
I would love to see you soon. I would love to see you soon. We just have to wait for the judge to make the decision, okay? As soon as he makes the decision, then I'll be able to see you. Okay?
Beata?
Yeah.
Beata, we're not allowed to talk about the case, okay? Maya, honey, we're going to talk about what you've been doing, if you need any Shopkins or things like that, if you had nice visits with your daddy, but we can't discuss the case, okay, honey?
How you doing? How is PT and OT going for you?
Not good.
Why is it?
Okay, Beata, we can't discuss any of those type of matters, okay?
Okay. And what do you usually need help with?
My pants.
What happens with the pants?
I just can't lift them up.
You can't pull up the pants anymore?
No.
When did that start, Maya?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe a while ago. I don't know. I don't remember when it started.
Okay.
TBH.
What's PBH?
Yeah, I'm going to redirect that line of conversation now, thank you.
Okay.
Torn between compliance and defiance, Maya's parents scrape for scraps of connection. They walk an agonizing tightrope, trying to regain custody while their child remains just out of reach. Jack will stop at nothing for his daughter. He agrees to an interview, admitting he offers no support for Beata's accusations. He declares he will exclude his wife from Maya's life if it means bringing her home. He does not stand beside Beata, making it clear he will obey any mandate to regain custody of Maya. Jack's singular focus becomes appeasing the officials, who control Maya's fate. He turns against his wife in hopes of swaying their sympathies. For Maya's future, Jack gambles with his integrity, risking his marriage to reclaim fatherhood.
Is Maya looking for some attention from her mom? Trying to please her mom? Mom wants her to be sick, so I'm going to be sick to please my mom?
I didn't hold that.
So let's not differentiate love and affection and caring for abuse, because they can happen in tandem.
Yeah. I don't agree with her on a lot of things, but I'll tell you what, intentionally, she would never hurt her children. You know, I swear on my life on that one.
Do you love your wife?
I love her. She is a pushy person, and it's getting worse right now. Just, you know, she don't want to cooperate.
This is a complicated case.
Sure.
And I think it could be very possible that someone could be looking at criminal charges. Which is why I'm asking you, are you protective or are you complicit?
Protective of my children.
Are your children truly your first priority?
I swear on my life, on my children's face.
I don't care. I'll put you and your wife in jail tomorrow
If I did something wrong, you put me in jail.
Absolutely.
Yes, I accept that.
Let me ask you, if Maya was released tomorrow, would you be compliant if that child was not to have any contact with her mother?
Yes. In a heartbeat.
In an effort to help the Kowalskis regain custody of Maya, her ketamine doctor Kirkpatrick calls the hospital to set the record straight. He calls the hospital and says, "I caution you about accusing a family member of criminal conduct as you move forward with your investigation," noting that doing so could result in needless and permanent harm to the child and family. Maya's anguished parents arrive at court to contest her custody removal and respond to the abuse allegations that rip their family apart. Maya is also permitted to attend the hearing, giving a painful illusion of nearness, though her parents remain out of reach. Before departing the hospital that has become her prison, Maya endures one final violation. She is systematically stripped and photographed without consent. Supposedly it is to document her condition, but the photos vanish with no legitimate medical purpose evident. At the hearing, Maya aches for even the briefest contact with her loving mother after their cruel separation. But the judge and hospital heartlessly deny Beata's simple request to hug her child. Beata is utterly devastated by this refusal for even a moment's compassion. Her mother's love has been deemed a danger to her health, and a simple embrace could sabotage the hospital's control over Maya's life. After the emotionally draining court hearing, Beata and Jack return home, weighed down by anguish and frustration. The next morning, Jack takes their son to a party, while Beata stays home, since she feels unwell. As the afternoon wears on, Jack returns with his son, and shortly after, Beata's brother stops by to support the family after the previous day's courtroom struggles. While Beata continues resting out of sight, the men distractedly watch television, trying to avoid discussing the crisis tearing the family apart. Seeking a brief distraction, Beata's brother heads to the garage to retrieve something. But instead of relief, he encounters a scene of horror. Beata's lifeless body hanging in the grim shadows. Her brother's anguished screams pierce the house as Jack rushes to his side, already seized by a dreadful certainty. Before even witnessing the tragedy himself, in the depth of his heart, Jack knew Beata's fragile spirit had reached a breaking point. Her unconditional maternal love had been labeled a psychiatric disorder. Alienated from the daughters she adored, there was only one escape from the unbearable pain. Beata's brother and husband call 911.
Tell me exactly what happened.
She hung herself in the garage. No.
Stay on the line. Are you with her now?
Well, I'm in the garage.
How old is she?
42.
Is she awake? I just have to verify.
She's stiff. She's stiff. Oh, my God. No, Kyle, you can't go in there.
Okay, tell me why she looks like she's dead.
No, I'm a retired deputy fire chief. I know she is.
Do you think she's beyond any help?
Beyond, yes, rigmarole. I'm sure she's really stiff.
Back at the hospital, Maya's father and brother break the devastating news. Her mother is gone. Maya sobs, her family shattered. Yet even in this moment, hospital staff whisper about Beata's supposed mental illness. To them, her death validates their Munchausen diagnosis. An outside psychologist previously identified that Beata's adjustment disorder was clearly caused by the enormous strain of Maya's undiagnosed illness and subsequent traumatic separation from her family. Yet despite this conclusive evidence, the hospital heartlessly pressed forward in trying to permanently sever Maya from her loving family. They continue mercilessly fighting to block Maya from returning home, insisting she be kept isolated in long-term inpatient foster care. It was not until an outside expert conducted an independent review of Maya's case and definitively corroborated her legitimate diagnosis of complex regional pain syndrome that the judge finally, belatedly returned custody of Maya to her father. She has spent Halloween, Christmas, New Year's, and her 11th birthday in the hospital. When Maya was at last discharged from the hospital that had caused her family so much needless suffering, she had lost a significant amount of weight, a troubling sign given that the separation had supposedly been implemented as a test for fabricated illness. Returning home without her mother, Maya was devastated and extremely weak, barely able to sit up on her own. Her father patiently supported her through intensive therapies to regain mobility and control her chronic pain. Over many months, Maya slowly improved both physically and emotionally. Gradually, Maya improves, even regaining the ability to walk. Now 16, her pain is managed, and she succeeds academically. But the scars remain from the hospital's cruelty in her most vulnerable moments. The Kowalskis seek justice for the torment they endured when Maya was 10 years old. They try for many years to take the hospital to court, after years of the hospital filing motion after motion to stall the trial, in hopes the family would give up. Their case is finally going to trial. The hospital is being charged for the wrongful death of Beata and for several other counts. These include false imprisonment, battery, and emotional abuse of Maya, along with fraudulent billing. Let's now take a look at the trial. The plaintiff believes all children's hospitals' egregious mistakes through extensive records, videos, and testimony reveals guilt. Therapists who worked directly with Maya detail her inexplicable symptoms and pain. They highlight Beata's anguished downward spiral as the hospital recklessly separated her from Maya. Multiple specialists confirm all children's hospital failed to properly diagnose or treat Maya's CRPS. The experts explain how early mismanagement caused Maya's condition to severely worsen. Testimony reveals the hospital billed over $500,000, including 174 entries for CRPS that Maya supposedly didn't have. The hospital will defend its savior status, insisting the parents pose danger with ketamine treatments. But anesthesia experts explain Maya's complex ketamine needs, countering any overdose accusations. The plaintiff is trying to expose the hospital's willful negligence, malpractice, and profit motive over proper care.
The way the anesthesiologists do it, which is the way all anesthetic is done, is that you titrate up. You start on smaller doses virtually every time, and you increase until the patient has a therapeutic effect. In other words, taking them out of pain is having the right effect on them. There is no evidence anywhere that Maya Kowalski was ever in any danger. Maya Kowalski ever suffered any negative effect whatsoever. The evidence will show it is all speculation on what could possibly happen. We doubt you're going to hear anything from a psychologist or psychiatrist to say that Maya was making any of this up, or that she was suffering from factitious disorder or conversion disorder. We doubt, seriously, you'll hear that. If the defense does come up with something, listen to my cross. They say that the amount of ketamine that the CRPS doctors were using, and the fact of the ketamine, as they call it, the ketamine coma. It's kind of in this case that's their boogeyman. It's the ketamine coma. You'll hear one of the doctors say that that's the reason why they should be able to take Maya away from the parents, just because they didn't think that was that was met the Johns Hopkins standard of care. So because it didn't meet their idea of how to treat CRPS, their argument is that justifies taking the child away. I think what they're going to say there is that, well, because some of the treatments we use can be used for CRPS, see, we could bill it. We have a memo, an internal memo, that says that they actually made a conscious decision to up their billing rate to CRPS because it's so much higher. See, CRPS takes a lot of effort to treat. You need occupational therapy, you need warm water therapy, you need physical therapy, psychological therapy. You've got a lot of different things that go into it. And so it's very expensive. But if you're just, evidence will show, warehousing a child while billing for CRPS, well.
The defense is up next. They hope to prove the hospital acted reasonably in a challenging case. They assert Maya's extensive ketamine treatments were unsafe and excessive. Doctors who treated Maya directly attempted to stabilize and wean her from those medications. The hospital tried to transfer Maya for needed therapy once stabilized, and they claim the hospital had a restricted role once the court took custody of Maya. The defense knows the plaintiff will accuse the hospital of falsely imprisoning Maya, but claim medical records reveal the hospital's readiness to discharge Maya once stable, pending court direction. They believe there is no truth to the alleged threats blocking the parents from removing Maya. The hospital was diligent in their efforts to treat Maya's obvious suffering. The defense hopes to prove the plaintiff's willful misinterpretations, unsupported conjectures, and profit motive allegations.
Ketamine is an anesthetic. It is an hallucinogen. It can create dependency. It can cause depression of vital signs. If not properly monitored, it can cause serious injury, life-endangering consequences. Mrs. Kowalski on this day was challenging the staff to give her daughter a dose of 1,500 milligrams of ketamine. That is a big dose. That dose you're going to hear is several times, many times, the maximum dose that Policies et al. Children's approved. Dr. Kirkpatrick, when this child was in the hospital in October and November of 2016, told Mrs. Kowalski that unless Maya Kowalski got more of his ketamine treatments, more of these high doses, that she would die a slow and painful death. Well, thankfully, he was wrong, or has been wrong so far. And we think he will continue to be wrong. You're going to see the billing sheets. You're going to see that CRPS was an item. It was one of a number of items that was being billed for. That none of this cost Mr. Kowalski a dime. And you're also hear that the insurer who was billed for the services rendered by All Children's Hospital for 3 months of inpatient therapy, the insurer never complained. Didn't say a word.
Maya herself takes the stand and recounts her experiences at the hospital. She remembers the blur of nurses pinning her small body down while suffering in pain. Maya reveals social worker Kathy Beatty exploited her desperation to visit her mother. She describes a nurse violently wrenching her limp arm during a bed change, ignoring her screams. She vividly remembers when a nurse and Kathy Beatty stripped her for coerced photos. The nurse Maya had trusted assisted in dehumanizing her. She was coerced into stripping for photographs before a court visit, fearing losing her one lifeline to her mom. The meek child finally agreed to wearing only shorts and a bra for the pictures. These pictures were claimed to have been protocol, but were not put in her medical file.
Eventually, I was able to reason with Kathy, and she said that I could keep my training bra on and my shorts. That's when she left the room. She came back with Nurse Alicia. I don't know her last name, but she came in and she assisted with holding me down and moving me and removing some articles of my clothing for the photos. Now, the purpose for these photos, typically, DCF takes them. DCF did not take these. And there's supposed to be a side-by-side comparison of pre-visit and post-visit. So I was leaving the hospital, so they took the photos before. There was never photos taken after.
And has it come to your attention that this did not end up in any analysis in the medical records or anything like that?
That's another thing I was promised in the whole reasoning with Kathy about not being nude. She told me that I could keep my shorts on in the training bra, and I specifically asked her to keep these photos private. I asked her if they were just going to be in the medical record, and she told me, yes, only doctors can see them. She actually physically went over to the computer where I've seen nurses and doctors put in information, and turns out she never put the photos in there.
Now, it has been portrayed that you were somehow enjoying this and just holding hands. Tell the jury what was going on.
I was not enjoying this at all. It is true, when the nurse came back into the room, I wasn't crying as much because Kathy had calmed me down after we made that, agreement. We met in the middle. But you can see my cheeks are red, and that happens a lot when I've been crying.
Okay, and we can see a little corner of your mouth there. Are you smiling, grimacing, or what?
I am most definitely not smiling.
Maya recalls waking up at 2 a.m., anguished over her missing mother. She recounts weeping inconsolably alone in her room as nurses passed by. That day, her nightmare was confirmed. Her beloved mom had died when Maya's inconsolable grief first struck. Maya describes the moment she found out her mother had passed. Her father told her and then was removed from the hospital within minutes. Then came the cruelest cut of all. A professional implied her mother's death was ultimately for the best.
And I called the nurse in, and I told her, this was a nurse that I actually had a pretty good relationship with. And I told her, I miss my mom. I miss my mom. I love my mom. I want to go home to my mom. Turns out she ended her life.
Was that around that time that
Yeah.
you did? Okay.
That's why I always say that it was really January 8th that she died, not the 7th, because I just have this feeling that it was then.
You felt it?
Mm-hmm. I was sat down on the couch. My dad was I think I was maybe I wasn't in the wheelchair, maybe I was on the couch. My dad may have lifted me and put me on the couch, so I'm not sure about that specific detail. But my dad was right next to me, and right next to my dad was Kyle. In front of me was Father Jack. My dad said he had some bad news. And weirdly enough, the first thing I thought of was they're not going to let me home, or that I was going to be put in foster care. And it turned out to be even worse than that. My mom had died. So I was told that, and immediately after my dad had to leave.
Okay. How long was your family allowed in there to tell you that your mom had passed?
It wasn't a lot of time, if I'm being completely honest. It was actually so unbelievably cruel, the amount of time they allocated for me to spend with my family after hearing such awful news.
And are you aware of how they responded to your mother's suicide internally?
I am. I actually had one-on-one interactions with the nurses. So most of the nurses, when I told them, they would say, oh, sorry, and just kind of continue on. And here I am just like crying, no consoling me whatsoever. However, there was one nurse who did, she was extremely kind and compassionate about the whole situation. As a matter of fact, she started crying as well. They felt that their whole narrative that they were maintaining, they felt that it was better that I was without my mom.
And there on the bottom, did they believe that now life was going to be better for you without your mom in it?
Objection, speculation.
Overall.
It's sickening, but yes.
Maya recalls the day the doctors shattered her world, cruelly informing her she may never return home. They told the child she could be placed in foster care, permanently torn from her remaining family. Maya describes the terror of imagining a bleak future, exiled from everything she had ever known. As Maya sat stunned, social worker Kathy Beatty callously offered a solution. Maya could come live with her instead. Kathy proposed becoming Maya's new mother, as if she could simply replace the beloved parent Maya had just tragically lost. Maya pleaded with Kathy, insisting she just wanted her real family back. But her cries fell on deaf ears. Kathy seemed determined to swoop in as Maya's savior, the new mother figure after painting Maya's own mother as a deranged and dangerous person.
Maya, during this period of time, what, if anything, made you suspicious, and what were you suspicious of?
It was normally the comments that they made or the restrictions that they placed on me and not the other kids. Again, they never directly told me what was going on, even though I asked. So I had to figure it out for myself, and it did take time until I had a general understanding of what was taking place.
And what was taking place, Maya?
I was stripped from my family.
They did not want you to go back to your family?
No.
And was this told to you in some form by Miss Beatty?
She made a lot of comments, especially about my mom. She was the one who came up with the mental institution comment. She also had a lot of ideas of where I should be placed.
All right. And what was she suggesting for you as a place that they would place you?
So I remember this one instance when she came into my room. She asked if she could sit on the end of my bed, and I told her yes. She sat down, and she told me that they were discussing in court the idea of foster care and placing me in a home. She cautioned me, this is word from word what she said, foster care is nothing like it is in the movies. She said that, and then after saying that, she suggested that she take me in and she would be my foster parent.
Maya explains that the social worker Kathy Beatty took an unusual interest in her during her hospital stay. Kathy gave Maya special attention compared to other patients. Maya remembers one time she was allowed to visit the hospital chapel to pray. Kathy came along, though Maya had not asked her to. In the chapel, Kathy began acting overly familiar with Maya. Kathy picked Maya up and sat her on her lap, holding the child closely. Maya describes how uncomfortable this made her feel. She just wanted to pray alone. But Kathy kept interfering. Though Kathy claimed she only wanted to comfort Maya, her actions crossed professional boundaries, given Maya's vulnerable condition. Kathy insisted on staying by Maya's side, providing support Maya neither wanted or needed. Maya recounts feeling powerless to stop Kathy's advances, with no family present. Maya's account reveals a trusted worker's breach of ethics and trust.
There was the whole chapel incident where a nurse wheeled me down to the first floor where the chapel is located. The nurse left when Kathy Beatty approached me. Kathy Beatty then kissed me, said, "I'm not trying to be your mother, but I can be." Then she wheeled me into the chapel, and at this point, I was so excited to finally be able to go to the chapel, and she just destroyed all of my excitement. She picks me up, puts me on her lap. She sits in this tan chair at the back of the chapel. There's a photo of that. And she just sat with me there, and then I told her I was done praying. I was very quick in there because I just wanted to go back to my room. And then I was put back into my room. There's many instances, numerous occasions, I that she lifted me up and put me on her lap. She like clawed through my hair. I was close enough to her, almost like at all times, to the point where I knew she had permanent eyeliner. That's not something like, you know, unless you're really close to a person. She would tell me like weird details about her life. Yeah.
Kathy Beatty was brought into Maya's life during a tumultuous period, was suspected of Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a rare and often misunderstood condition where a caregiver fabricates or induces illness in a child. Beatty's role was to oversee Maya's situation, but her methods and decisions would later be questioned and scrutinized. Kathy Beatty, a seasoned social worker, takes the stand. Kathy begins by outlining her extensive experience in social work, emphasizing her 22-year dedication to the field. She makes it clear that her background is in social welfare, not medicine, setting a foundation for her involvement in Maya's case. Her role as the primary social worker during Maya's prolonged hospital stay at All Children's Hospital is a focal point, a period fraught with controversy and difficult decisions. The focus then shifts to Kathy's professional trajectory, particularly her work with children in foster care and those with severe behavioral issues. This part of her story highlights the gap between her intentions as a social worker and the allegations she now faces. Tough Questions follows, centering on her controversial decisions to take photographs of Maya. Kathy defends this action as a medical necessity, igniting a debate over consent and patient rights. Kathy admits she took photos of Maya before she went to court. Kathy acknowledges she did not ask Maya's parents for consent. However, with a smirk, Kathy claims she received consent from the Department of Children and Families instead.
I'll direct your attention towards the bottom there of the paragraph where there is a 1, a 2, and a 3. Do you see those?
I do see those.
Well, first, do you agree this is a Johns Hopkins requirement?
I see that it's a Johns Hopkins policy.
All right. Then take a look at 1, 2, and 3. Did you attempt to contact the parents? That's the question. First question is, did you attempt to contact the parents?
I did not. But I did contact DCF.
Did you make any further attempts, or at least document it in the record, that you tried to get a hold of the parents?
I didn't attempt to call the parents.
And did you comply with number 3? The actual contact with the parent's legal guardian, advising the parent's legal guardian of consent and treatment authorized by DCF?
I did contact DCF, who was the legal guardian at the time for the child, yes.
No. There was a guardian ad litem appointed, was there not?
The guardian ad litem doesn't have consent.
Did you document anywhere in the file, if the jury was to look, that you tried to contact the GAL?
I wouldn't have contacted the GAL. The GAL is not the guardian.
And in the records, would you agree there is no analysis of these photos from a medical standpoint?
I don't know that.
So you knew going in that you were, what reason was it then?
Dr. Danielson asked us to document her skin condition.
And you would do that no matter whether it was allowed or not?
Objection argument.
True?
Overruled. You can't answer that.
So we did this, or I did this because this was asked of us by Dr. Danielson and it had a good reason for it. If it was not a good reason, I certainly would have been discussing it with the medical team.
Dr. Danielson is not with DCF, is she?
No, she's not.
Charlotte Laporte, did you attempt to get authorization from Charlotte Laporte?
I did get authorization, talked with Charlotte Laporte that day.
You say you did.
Mm-hmm.
So if she testified in this courtroom that you did not, would she be incorrect?
Objection argument.
Overruled.
I don't know. I was talking to her that day, and they were doing their own pictures in Sarasota.
So, go ahead.
And I explained to her that we were doing the photos here at the hospital.
Again, I just need to know, is she says in court that you did not seek any permission from her, is she wrong?
I don't know what she said and what she didn't say.
Kathy recalls the gut-wrenching task of telling Maya she couldn't go home for Christmas. Kathy's voice softens as she describes Maya's devastation and her own attempt to comfort the young girl. The attorney outlines the code that Kathy must abide by as a professional, and Kathy acknowledges the effort she took to comfort Maya.
Would you agree the parents still had their medical rights?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Would you agree that it's against the Johns Hopkins Bill of Patients' Rights to not obtain that consent to a procedure?
So once the child's placed in DCF custody...
And you need to answer the question that's actually asked.
So it depends.
You started to state, quote, depends, end quote. Is the jury to take this as the, quote, ethics, end quote, you were to abide to are, in your view, open to your personal interpretation?
So they're guidelines, and with guidelines, they're open to what the situation brings. And many times kids would come up to us for comfort. We might side hug them. We might hold their hand. There were many times that I would be with kids while their procedures were happening, and I would be using skills to help them relax during that time. And I might hold their hand. I might rub their head. I might rub their feet, depending on where they were in the situation. But you weren't doing anything that was invasive. And it certainly didn't happen every day.
Kathy firmly denies several severe allegations, insisting she never belittled Maya's condition, restricted her social interactions, or engaged in inappropriate physical contact. Her strong refutes seek to dismantle the portrayal of a callous professional, instead revealing a caregiver ensnarled in a complex, emotionally charged situation. During her deposition that was taken before the trial, a regional pain disorder and Munchausen by proxy, she explains that she had a handful of cases in the past that were deemed as Munchausen, but no experience with RSD.
And so, let me ask you something about how you got involved in this case. First, I want to know a little bit about your qualifications for a case that I think you would agree with me is this complex. Would you agree with me this is a complex case?
Yes, I would agree with you.
Tell me what, before being assigned to Maya, what specific training you had in CRPS?
I didn't have any in CRPS.
What is RSD?
It's regional pain disorder.
Okay.
I have to think about it.
All right. How about, do you have any specific training in RSD?
No.
How about Munchausen's by proxy?
Yes, in graduate school.
Okay. And what was that specific training that you had in graduate school?
Psychopathology.
And how long would you say they spent on Munchausen by proxy?
I can't tell you. That was a long time ago.
Kathy is asked about her recommendations regarding the previously investigated possibility of Munchausen by proxy in Maya's case. Kathy was involved in the initial investigation. However, the hospital eventually determined that Maya had CRPS, which by default invalidates Munchausen accusations. Kathy states she no longer has any control or authority to initiate holding children in the hospital due to such allegations. She indicates that the responsibility to make those types of decisions lies with the court system and the hospital's risk management committee.
Did this child's operating diagnosis include complex regional pain syndrome?
Her diagnosis included that, yes.
As soon as this child, the medical doctors, not you, hospital determined in the chart that she did have complex regional pain syndrome, that invalidated any allegation of Munchausen's by proxy, correct?
That was not a determination for me to make.
Well, you said that you read up on it, right?
On Munchausen, correct.
And you did recommend on multiple occasions that the child be kept in the hospital, did you not? I just read it to you.
Yes. Yes, I did.
And on multiple occasions, you made recommendations to keep the mother away from the child, did you not?
Yes.
And on multiple occasions, you made recommendations to limit the child's contact with certain family members, including the father, did you not?
Yes.
All of the things you were doing were based on a presumption that there was Munchausen's by proxy going on with this family, right?
Not my presumption. At that point, she had been sheltered, and I had to follow the shelter order along with the visitation orders that were given by the court. I made recommendations based on how Maya was participating in her therapies and with the staff.
Isn't it true you were the person in the hospital that had the primary control over who saw Maya, what Maya ate, what she did, who she could talk to?
No.
Okay, who else in the hospital, after reviewing all of these emails and memos we're about to go over, who else had day-to-day control over who Maya could see and not see, and who could come in at what time and not come in at what time? What other person?
That was up to the court order.
You read all these court orders before this deposition, did you not?
I did read the court orders.
And you're aware that when those limitations were put in, that the court then deferred to the hospital for the specifics of everything, right?
Correct.
The court made certain general findings for the benefit of the child, but then deferred to the hospital about how to implement those, right?
Correct.
Order behind you, but you were the person in terms of when we get to the hospital's discretion on to do things, you were the person that had most day-to-day control, if you will.
I was at that point consulting with Risk, and so that would have been up to Risk to interpret, and I asked many times to have Risk interpret them for me so that we knew what we were supposed to do and not do.
Right.
Although Kathy claimed to not have experience with CRPS, she did state that other children with CRPS can become bedridden. This indicates she has encountered CRPS cases and is familiar with some of the potential symptoms associated with the disorder.
Did you not?
Maya cried, but not while she was reporting pain.
Okay. Are you saying that Maya was not really in pain?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying, what I'm saying is, again, that Maya did not show the same type of pain symptoms that other children showed.
She showed exactly the same pain symptoms that other children showed at certain times, and at certain times she did not, correct?
I would say that Maya's pain was different than all the time from other children's pain.
How many complex regional pain syndrome children have you treated on a regular basis?
I think we've seen 2 or 3 in the pediatric intensive care unit.
Okay. And so complex regional pain syndrome is a little different than having a broken leg, is it not?
Oh, yes.
Complex regional pain syndrome involves a burning sensation under the skin, right? It's quite painful, is it not?
I've never had it.
Well, have you read anything on it?
I have read something on it.
Okay. So Maya's symptoms of pain were consistent with children who have complex regional pain syndrome, were they not?
Again. I'm sorry, I'm shaking my head. Yes.
They were, right?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay. I mean, they weren't any different than the 2 or 3 you'd had before,
Oh, they were different. Yes. No, they were different. The other kids that we had that had complex regional pain disorder were often bedridden for days at a time.
Well, so was Maya.
For the 95% of the time, Maya was up in her wheelchair going to activities within the hospital.
Except on the days when she complained of extraordinary pain, right?
95% of the time that I saw Maya was up in her wheelchair, and the times that she would report extraordinary pain would be when she was prompted by her mother.
Prompted by her mother.
Excuse me.
Are you finished?
You finished with the answer?
Prompted by her mother, or if somebody asked her if she was having pain. And sometimes that was in the setting of being down in the child life department has a room, an activity center down on the second floor. So I do know that there were a couple of, maybe it was the guardian ad litem or the CPIs that met her down there. And while they were watching her have these activities, she was reporting her pain as being a 10.
In a twist of fate, it was revealed that Kathy Beatty herself had faced accusations of child abuse in 2007 while she was a manager at Suncoast Center for Community Health. She had been accused of physically restraining a 10-year-old boy in a manner that caused him distress. Kathy reportedly grabbed the boy's head, causing him to fall down, and placed both knees on the boy's chest until his face turned red. This incident ultimately led Suncoast to settle a lawsuit for a whopping $2.5 million. This previous incident raised questions about her suitability for handling sensitive cases like Maya's. Suncoast Center is a private company contracted by the state for handling child welfare cases. Dr. Smith, similarly to Kathy Beatty, was employed by Suncoast Center. Dr. Smith was a pediatric child abuse specialist who played a crucial role in diagnosing Maya's case. Dr. Smith is known for her aggressive investigative approach. She is often determined to find evidence of abuse, even in cases where the evidence is not clear. She believes that part of her job is to uncover the truth behind what she perceives as deceptive stories told by caregivers. Despite wearing an ID badge from All Children's Hospital, Dr. Smith is not a staff member of the hospital. This distinction is important because it means that conversations with her are not protected by doctor-patient confidentiality. Families, however, often mistake her for a hospital doctor due to her badge. Smith was not buying into the CRPS story. She instructed doctors to secretly videotape Maya and asked nurses to try to catch the girl moving her legs. Quote, "I just went to see Maya," end quote, one hospital employee texted Dr. Smith. Quote, "I watched her use her feet to push herself in her wheelchair. She was distracted, and I'm not even sure she realized she did it, because I didn't call attention to it," end quote. Dr. Smith replied, quote, "Fortunately, at 10 years old, she can't perform the charade effectively 24/7, and doesn't even know if she's making physiological mistakes," end quote. Dr. Smith operates within a system that is heavily focused on identifying child abuse proactively, supported by mandated reporting laws and specialized pediatricians. This system, particularly in Florida, leads to a high number of abuse reports for medical personnel. In Maya's case, after Dr. Smith concluded that Maya was feigning her illness, All Children's Hospital continued to maintain custody separation from her parents. This allowed the hospital to bill over $500,000 for Maya's CRPS treatments, despite accepting Dr. Smith's assessment of Munchausen by proxy. Dr. Smith stated, quote, "The primary problem with child abuse is that the person who has abused the child is full-on lying, and we have to remember that what we're being told is the history is a bunch of baloney, and it's our job to figure that out," end quote. Dr. Smith has stated in court that she has often, quote, "come under attack with people saying I'm a zealot," end quote, but she believes these accusations are unfair. During this trial, Dr. Smith maintained that her assessments were accurate. She said she can't recall a single time that her fellow experts at the state or national level have disagreed with one of her assessments. However, Dr. Smith has a long history of diagnosing child abuse. Dr. Smith has concluded child abuse in at least 12 cases that were later overturned on appeal or investigation. Her abuse determinations have led to children being separated from parents, caregivers criminally charged, and families devastated by false allegations. Specific examples show the drastic actions taken based on Smith's unsupported speculations. When a 4-month-old suffered brain bleeds, Dr. Smith decided his father had, quote-unquote, slammed the baby, despite no evidence of bruises or trauma. The father was charged with felony assault and only exonerated 8 months later, missing seeing his child learn to walk. Another infant was seized by police, and her toddler taken into custody after Dr. Smith deemed their malnutrition was neglect. It took legal advocacy and public pressure for the family to regain custody months later. These cases and others show how Smith's refusal to admit fallibility or reevaluate conclusions, even with proof of no abuse, resulted in grave consequences. Children lost time bonding with parents, and caregivers endured prosecution and trauma trying to rebuild their lives after being wrongly accused. In the end, the jurors found the Children's Hospital liable for false imprisonment of Maya, battery of Maya, fraudulent billing of her father, inflicting emotional distress on Beata, her mother, wrongful death claim for the estate of Beata, and intentionally inflicting emotional distress on Maya. They were awarded $261 million in damages. $211 million were compensatory damages, while $50 million were punitive damages, intended to financially harm the hospital.
1. What is the total amount of punitive damages, if any, which you find, by the greater weight of the evidence, should be assessed against Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital for the false imprisonment of Maya Kowalski occurring between October 7th and October 13th, 2016? $15 million. 2. Do you find by clear and convincing evidence that at the time of the false imprisonment of Maya Kowalski between October 7th and October 13th, 2016, did Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital have a specific intent to harm Maya Kowalski, and did the conduct of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in fact harm Maya Kowalski? Yes. Claim 1B, false imprisonment between October 18th and October 20th, 2016, Maya Kowalski. 4. What is the total amount of punitive damages, if any, which you find by the greater weight of the evidence should be assessed against Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital for the false imprisonment of Maya Kowalski occurring between October 18th and October 20th, 2016? $10 million. 5. Do you find by clear and convincing evidence that at the time of the false imprisonment of Maya Kowalski between October 18th and October 20th, 2016, did Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital have a specific intent to harm Maya Kowalski, and did the conduct of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in fact harm Maya Kowalski? Yes. Claim 1C and Claim 2, false imprisonment and battery, January 6, 2017, Maya Kowalski. 7. What is the total amount of punitive damages, if any, which you find by the greater weight of the evidence should be assessed against Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital for the false imprisonment and battery of Maya Kowalski occurring on January 6, 2017? $25 million. 8. Do you find by clear and convincing evidence that at the time of the false imprisonment and battery of Maya Kowalski occurring on January 6, 2017, did Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital have a specific intent to harm Maya Kowalski, and did the conduct of Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital in fact harm Maya Kowalski? Yes.
after several motions were filed by the attorneys representing Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, the judge found that certain damages awarded to the family were excessive, lowering the damages by $47.5 million, bringing the total the hospital must pay to the Kowalski family to $213.5 million. The judge denied the hospital's hope for a retrial. Given the extremely disturbing nature of real child abuse cases, Dr. Smith and Kathy Beatty may have developed unconscious defense mechanisms that make them prone to see signs of maltreatment even when unwarranted. Over years of exposure to horrific beatings, burns, and neglect, Smith and Beatty may have become hypersensitized to perceiving threats against children's safety. Their refusal to admit wrongfulness could stem from an inflated view of their own capabilities, or a need to avoid agonizing over missing real abuse. Additionally, their role of being the definitive experts diagnosing child assault, with profound influence over families' fates, may have fed an outsized sense of responsibility, power, and self-righteousness. This could manifest into jumping to unsupported conclusions that confirm their internal biases. External validation from grateful abused children and succeeding in separating kids from situations they deem unsafe, no matter how questionably, could further reinforce their tendency towards overdiagnosing. Facing the reality of ruining innocent families' lives might undermine the self-image they have constructed around their expertise and judgment. This avoidance of acknowledgement enables the cycle of misleading speculation, false positives, and refusal to reassess. And why was the hospital in denial of their actions being appropriate for the misdiagnosis? The hospital's stubborn clinging to a Munchausen by proxy diagnosis, even after accepting Maya's CRPS, reveals the difficulty of admitting professional errors. Admitting their abuse accusations were unfounded forces the hospital to confront its grave mistakes. This threatens the self-concept of the doctors as competent professionals. To reduce this mental discord, they irrationally perpetrate their original judgment despite strong disconfirming evidence. Additionally, confirmation bias leads people to selectively favor facts supporting their existing views. Thus, the doctors latch onto any details implying maternal fabrication while discounting the overwhelming data contradicting that belief. With reputations and egos at stake, the doctors rationalize away facts clashing with their ingrained perspective. Their faulty diagnosis determination reflects innate human weakness in processing information that challenges established perspectives. As always, this analysis is not intended to absolve any of the faculty of their wrongfulness. Do you think Maya and her mother were faking her symptoms? Or was the hospital wrong all along? Do you think the hospital's actions were necessary? Or could they have gone about it a different way? Please remember to subscribe to the channel to receive automatic reminders of our weekly videos, which we premiere on Sundays, and to also be reminded of our weekday live streams where we cover full trials and true crime stories. Also, if you want early access to ad-free and uncensored versions of all Wicked videos, feel free to become a channel member. Becoming a member will also give you access to exclusive emotes and badges. Thank you for watching, and join us next time when we explore the psychological maze of some of the most wicked people.